Well, good morning, Grace. I can tell by listening to people singing and just looking at people's faces that many of you have taken Zach's challenge yesterday to enter into chapel with a sense of expectation and excitement, and it looks like some of you have done that today. The four of us this morning get the opportunity to further develop the theme for this school year, Moving Beyond. Yesterday, Scott, I think, really connected well with how I often feel being stuck, being disappointed, dissatisfied, discontent with life the way it is, and even showing how not only do we kind of want to stay where we're at, but we kind of want to go back. There's a tendency to want to go back to something comfortable, something more familiar, something maybe that we want to redo and try to do better. But we have a God who calls us forward. And this morning, we're going to just have a conversation up here. And we've prepared some thoughts, and hopefully we'll just kind of interact with each other as we further develop this theme of moving beyond. And to kind of frame our discussion, I want to look at a verse that's probably familiar to many of you, but I think it really demonstrates and shows this whole idea of moving beyond in a pretty amazing way. And it's Acts 2, verse 42. It says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship and the breaking of bread and the prayers." And the context of this verse, this comes right after Pentecost. And it comes right after this amazing response that those who heard Peter's sermon had in an event where over 3,000 people, upon hearing the good news, devoted their lives to Christ. And so these early believers in the early hours of the early church devote themselves to these different practices, these different disciplines, these values, and I think that they kind of inform the type of values and practices and attitudes that we should have as we move beyond. So we're just going to take some time to kind of unpack that verse and just share some thoughts of how that might apply also to Grace College this year as we try to move beyond wherever you find yourself.
Okay, so our first thought with Acts chapter 2 is devotion. Now, in the video yesterday, Heather Story said that she hopes this year that Chapel challenges you to examine your life. All right? And I love that, and I think connecting that to this concept of devotion, I hope our theme this year challenges you toward examining your relationship with your God. Okay, your commitment to Him, your devotion. I want to read you a quick quote from the book called Dangerous Wonder. All right, Michael Yaconelli. Okay, if we had time, I'd have you all say that together, but we won't. All right, the most critical issue facing Christians today is not abortion, pornography, the disintegration of the family, moral absolutes, MTV, drugs, racism, sexuality, or school prayer. The critical issue today is dullness. We've lost our astonishment. The good news is no longer good news. It's okay news. Christianity is no longer life-changing. It's life-enhancing. Jesus doesn't change people into wild-eyed radicals anymore. He changes them into nice people. If Christianity is simply about being nice, I'm not interested. Sounds a little bit like relationship, doesn't it? My son, 15, don't tell him I'm telling you this story. All right? Okay. 15. This summer, the end of last year, we bought him a cell phone. Don't buy your kids cell phones. Don't ever buy your kids cell phones. Well, sure enough, the cell phone led to a relationship. Oh no. Now, like Scott shared yesterday, I'm not sure what a relationship looks like with a 15-year-old, back then 14. But all I know is with the cell phone and the new relationship, there was intensity. There was constant texting, constant pursuit of one another. They were constantly interacting. And all of you are going, yes, I know just how that feels. Okay, many of you do that. And so in a sense, that's kind of the thing we're talking about when we talk about a honeymoon period in a relationship. You'll understand marriage. Sometimes marriages, there's a period in marriage that's a honeymoon relationship. Okay, it's starting out. It's very intense. There's a lot of pursuing of one another. But then all of a sudden, couples sometimes fall into this state of dullness. They fall into a complacent stage, a sameness stage. And what's really going on is we start focusing on things that really are not significant to the health of the marriage, okay? And it actually ultimately causes us to lose interest in the relationship, sometimes. What do I mean by that? In a marriage, you may try to help your significant other by pursuing a better career, building a house, buying another car, buying a washer dryer, doing whatever you can do to win that person over through activity, all right? And so that's what happens. We end up caring more about activities than we do the person. You know what? Really, oftentimes that needs to happen is we just need to pursue that other person. That's all we need to do. We need to pursue that person. We do that with our faith. We do it all the time. We do this with God. We spend a lot of time doing things. And these things are good, you guys. Working in Awana is fantastic, okay? Being a Sunday school teacher is fantastic. Going on Go Grace teams, it's fantastic. Do them. Make sure you do them. All the service you do is fantastic. It's all good, but it's not good if it replaces the relationship that I believe God desires. It's not good. And we can fall into this as Grace College students because we spend our entire time here in chapel during the week. We go to classes where we study the Bible. We get indoctrinated, so to speak, with a spiritual life, a spiritual health, a spiritual wellness. And then what happens? The relationship suffers because we don't invest in it. If you want to move beyond, you need to pursue someone and love someone and spend time with that person. That person's God. He calls us to life transformation. He needs to be the focus of our lives. So, will you give pursuit to him that's equal to his radical pursuit of you? It's hard. It'll take time. It takes commitment. We all have things in our lives we'll have to change. Could be a little less Xbox. Could be. Could be a little less service. It could be a little less intramurals. It could be maybe a little less studying. Don't tell the profs I said that. It could be a lot of things, but whatever we do, it has to be a priority. We have to go after it with intentionality. So moving beyond, to me, connecting to this verse, is about engaging the relationship with him by making him the most important thing in our lives.
Man, that's awesome, Jim. I think what's so great about this, what's so great about the idea that we're need to pursue our relationship with God in a new way is that we don't have to do it alone. What do you guys think of when you hear the word fellowship? I don't know about you, but when I first hear it, like outside of this scripture, I think of cookies and punch after Sunday school in a basement of a church where you're talking about the weather and your children, and that's what I think of when I think of fellowship. However, when we were looking at this verse yesterday, I sort of started to imagine what it would have looked like in this context for fellowship to be happening in light of the new renewed devotion to Christ. And I think it doesn't look as much like small talk necessarily. I think it looks more like raw authenticity with one another, like bearing your souls under the banner of Christ's love and grace. Even when I think about God's intention for a relationship, I think about his nature, the Trinity, and how that's modeled even in himself, the importance of relationship. Even back in Genesis chapter 2, when man was created in paradise, it wasn't good for him to be alone, so God created a partner, which also shows that even in paradise, even in a perfect world, we still need each other. So what does this mean for us as Grace College in light of this importance of relationship? What does that call